We're glad to have you back. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says the old Port Harcourt refinery is up and running with loading operations in full swing. The Group Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Mele Kyari, gave the confirmation at the commissioning of the Nupeng Towers in Lagos. The GCEO of the NNPCL extended an invitation to the human rights activists, that's Mr. Femi Falana, a lawyer, and others who questioned the functionality or the functional state of the refinery to join the NNPC on a tour to the refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna to verify their status. He also shed light on the controversy around product blending, stating that blending was not a crime as it is an integral part of the refining process. Now, in the GCEO's words, and I read what he said, if you don't blend, you will bring out off-spec products, which will destroy vehicles. Every refinery blends because what is on specification in the United States of America will be off-spec in Nigeria and elsewhere. Blending is necessary to bring product to specification of different countries or regions. That's according to Mr. Mele Kyari. Now, he also disclosed that the president's interventions in the oil and gas industry by ways of executive orders were yielding positive results with more investment coming in, prospects of more jobs in the industry. Dr. Ayodele Oni is an energy lawyer and analyst, a partner at Bloomfield Law and Practice. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. It's good to have you in.
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon.
I think I've had different perspectives to this conversation, and I'm going to start with you today by asking you that please, you're a player in the industry. You know all that has to do with the oil and gas industry. You've been there. You're an author. You've done a lot around the space. Can you help us differentiate between blending and refining?
Okay, thank you very much. Useful question, and I know that's been quite controversial. Now, when you speak to refining, you say when it's like when you boil water. When you boil water, liquid always ends up becoming vapor, and the vapor, when cooled, becomes liquid back. Now, so refining is that crude, you apply a lot of heat, over 1,000 degrees, then in that distillation tower, it will begin to settle down based on the weight. When that vaporization or the vapor, when it settles down. So you now have oil at different levels and the heavier oil. Now, a part of the refining process, when you have all of that, you will not get to naphtha unless you then crack. When you crack it, you then reduce further, you make it, you take it further to something lighter, which is naphtha. Now, that's where many refineries may stop, unless you go into what they call secondary refining. And at that point, you must have what they call a catalytic reformer. That's when you now have PMS, gasoline, petrol, what we call petrol, colloquially. So it's a process from vaporizing, applying heat, it settles down into liquids at different weights, and then you go to the next level where you crack, and you have your naphtha, and then you reform and have your PMS. Now, there are two means. Some reform if you have that catalytic reformer, which many smaller refineries don't have because of its cost. And I'll give you an example, and it's in public space, so I can say the ND refinery, what used to be the Niger Delta refinery, now Aradel refineries, was a 1,000 barrels per day refinery. It then grew capacity to up to 11,000 barrels, meaning that it added 10,000 barrels. And they now got a catalytic reformer. And the cost of getting a catalytic reformer was the same price, at the same cost of expanding that refinery to 2,000 barrels. So many refineries won't have it. And some then blend instead. You can have your cracked 5 and you blend with naphtha to get your PMS or your gasoline. And there could be other reasons for that. So yeah, many refineries in the world also blend. And blending means mixing various, more than one product to get a third product. So that's the difference between refining and blending. Blending, bringing together, refining, breaking it down, particularly using heat to different elements based on weight. That's the difference.
the difference again between turnaround maintenance and the total rehabilitation of a refinery?
Okay. Now, the difference between those two, turnaround means from time to time, you need to do your servicing. You know, at times they would say they've got an A servicing, they've got a B servicing, whether it's an airplane engine, power plant, refinery. But when you do your rehabilitation, that's more extensive, and could take several months. Unlike when you just do your usual, what they would call it, maintenance. Whether you call it a turnaround maintenance or you just call it your maintenance, it's got specific periods in the lifetime of infrastructure or equipment that you do your turnaround. But rehabilitation is more extensive, and I think what they've done with the LMN refinery in Port Harcourt is more a rehabilitation than a turnaround maintenance. That's the difference.
Another interesting clarity there for us. Now, let's move a step further and look at what's happening with this refinery. What do you think, considering its capacity and what it will do to support what we have on ground? Before now, it was all talks around Dangote Refinery, but now we see PH, Port Harcourt Refinery, on stream, and the president has instructed the NNPCL to go ahead and fix Kaduna Refinery, the second segment of the Port Harcourt Refinery, and on like that. Or do you think that really is the way to go?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, because you want to guarantee security of energy supply for the nation. So if you have the current element does about 60,000 barrels per day, the other one, the newer one, that's a 1965 plant, by the way. The 1989 plant does about 150,000 barrels. Now, if you add both together, then you'd be speaking to something a bit more reasonable, not anywhere close to the Dangote refinery in terms of volumes, but it moves us further. And, I remember on an interview a few years ago speaking about queues every December. You want to be sure that we do not continue to have those queues when you have international challenges with logistics and all of that. Once we can refine what we produce locally, it takes us closer. Now, in terms of pricing, competition always ensures that pricing remains competitive and be slightly lower. I'm not optimistic around it being a substantial change, unless, of course, there's an arrangement around crude pricing and government does sell crude lower, or international crude prices drop. If international crude prices drop, it will translate to having lower prices. But this would engender competition to an extent, and prices will be more competitive, would not necessarily be substantially lower unless the key product, the primary product, which is crude, goes down. But it would ensure that we have, at the pumps there and quick queues, we can ensure our own security of energy supply. Because it's not sufficient to have crude, you should have infrastructure, you should have your logistics should work so that you can get finished products after you've refined it to the pumps, so that everyone can have that available. And I'm believing that this Christmas we won't be at the pumps like we've been for several years.
Now, crude supply obviously is needed for petrol production and other products and all of that. So, of course, ramping up production is key. I know the NNPCL has been on top of this. The last check, I think we're at about 1.8 million barrels per day. That's what the NNPC, what we've been producing on daily basis. And that's a figure from the NNPC and the NMDPRA. That's a good one. But I'm looking at the fact that by the time we have plenty of dysfunctional refineries, do we have enough crude to supply? We are yet to meet OPEC's quota. What's your take with regards to the level of crude and how we can meet up? Even the modular refineries, they will definitely need crude.
Okay, interesting point. You'd find out that a number of, I'll start with the modular refineries. You'd find out that a number of them have production. Even Alhaji Dangote, I understand, has oil blocks. And it's a matter of time before production begins. You understand? So as we have And also note that it's not only the NNPC that does have crude. You have a lot of private sector guys. And we have a domestic crude supply obligation everyone does have. If the regulators enforce that, I understand there are issues around loans that they've taken and they've created security over their crude and all of that, forward sale arrangements, even for the NNPC. But as long as we continue to do what we are doing, we continue to encourage investments, deals such as the Shell deal closes, the Exxon Seplat deal, you would have more production. We'll meet our quota. We'll be able to supply what we need to supply domestically. I'm not saying it's magic that happen, but if we continue to push and continue to encourage more people to come and invest in that sector, you'd have more production. I think in the short term, it will still be a challenge, but I think in the mid-term, I think with the attitude of the government towards having more people and ensuring that these deals close, and I'm hoping I'll hear good news around the Shell deal in the next few weeks. So that if we do have that, then you'd see people invest. You'd see the guys who bought these assets invest towards more production of crude so that we can supply domestically and we can also export. I think that's critical. Government needs to continue to push to ensure that succeeds, and we need to continue to have investments and investors in that sector to achieve any.
Mr. Mele Kyari also added yesterday that the president has granted executive orders, and he says these are yielding positive results. I know you're part of some of this discussions and all of that. So tell us some of these orders, and particularly with regards to gas. I'm seeing that I hope we are not stepping down that move. We've been so energetic in regards to taking advantage of our gas, proven and unproven gas reserves. Are we doing what we should do? And these executive orders, are they going to help attract the needed investment for gas now? That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, I think for gas, we already are seeing a lot of movement with a number of IOCs looking to do projects in the country. And these incentives, fiscal incentives, when anyone wants to go invest in a country, one of the critical points they look at are incentives. They look at the fiscals generally, even beyond saying incentives. And the fiscals seem to be getting more attractive with certain benefits, tax credits, all of those things by the minister and the president's executive orders. Those will attract and continue to attract as long as other things also work. I mean, that alone will not be sufficient because guys look beyond the fiscals. They want to be sure that there's consistency in your laws, right? If the law continue to improve, then they may not mind, particularly when investors can get more. So those incentives you see around associated, non-associated gas, investment tax credits, allowances, those are useful. And the fun thing about Nigeria is that we have nearly as much of associated and non-associated gas. It's almost 50-50. So to that extent, when you have incentives covering both across both sides, then it makes it more attractive. And see what government is also doing with the gas flare commercialization program, getting guys to come and take gas that is destined for flaring at the flare stack. And we see a lot of people, we see a lot of action, and it's interesting also that I've been advising on, my colleagues and I have been advising on a number of those transactions. So it's a case that government is doing a lot, even beyond those fiscal incentives introduced by the president's special advisor on energy, also the minister. There is also, beyond saying there's the stick approach, there's also the carrot approach where people can go and there's a commercial arrangement to take gas that would otherwise have been flared. You also see what they are doing with CNG. Yes, more needs to be done around the midstream and downstream, but in terms of those incentives, even for midstream and downstream, import duty exemption, all of those are in place, and I think we're headed in the right direction in terms of policy. We just need to ensure that the civil servants also join in ensuring that these are well implemented. There is having brilliant people with brilliant policies and laws and legislation, but you want to also ensure that the civil servants, the public servants, properly implement these incentives. So I think we're still trying a gas-centered economic growth.
Finally, before I let you go, let's look at the entire market now, talking about the global oil market. What is your outlook for 2025 as we move towards the end of the year? What do you make of the present situation, considering the geopolitical issues that we find across the world?
Okay, I think things may balance out. I'm looking at it from a Trump presidency standpoint, and I think that's going to affect a lot, right? If he does the drill baby drill thing, then it means that we may even have an oil glut, and oil prices are going to drop, right? However, if there are conflicts in the Middle East, Iran, elsewhere, then it may then balance out, and oil prices may still drop, but it wouldn't be as substantial as if Trump opens up the space, says, the suspension on LNG projects are lifted, everyone go drill, baby drill, then it means we'll nearly have an oil glut, and oil prices will substantially come down. But if the likely disputes also continue, like as we see them, then it may just even out, such that it may be at the current levels, maybe we'll say $60, $70, $75 per barrel. That's one thing I see in the industry. And also, I think internationally, there's more being done around ensuring metering, fiscalization. Even in Nigeria, you may be aware, I think it was July 2024 when government approved a contract around metering for oil installations, so that you can be sure that proper fiscalization and metering is done. So I see all of this more around gas. Maybe even transition takes a back seat. With what we did see with the most recent COP, it suggests that we still want to secure our energy future, regardless of transition. So I think that there'll be that continuing debate between energy transition and still wanting to do more of gas. And I think that debate will go on throughout 2025. And I think oil prices may dip a bit unless there are serious disputes in the Middle East.
Okay, now again, are we winning the war? That war against all theft, which is also something that is very important. Yeah. I know NNPC is ramping up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that we don't know from press reports from whether there's a lot of hue and cry in the press. It looks like that's subsided. You're not hearing as much as you used to 2-3 years ago. So I think that the battle is being fought. Whether it's being won convincingly is a different conversation, but I think it's being well fought. At least government is standing its ground and trying its very best to ensure that that does reduce. I don't think we've eliminated it. I don't think we're close to eliminating it, but I don't think it's as bad as it used to be.
Dr. Adeleoni, I must thank you so much. It's always interesting having you on the show. Energy lawyer, analyst. Thanks for your breakdown. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend and compliments of the season.
Thank you very much for having me, and compliments too.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking markets and see what the figures are looking like for today. This is Business Nigeria. Don't go away.